take me back to September 11th, 2001. Do you remember what you were doing? Does it feel like it was yesterday for you?
Yes, I do. Actually, I remember quite well what I was doing. I was with my now husband, Greg, and we were doing a little bit of traveling around. And I was very concerned at that point I was very concerned at that point when I heard the news, because I had a cousin who is an admiral in the Navy who was stationed at the Pentagon. I had a brother who worked on Wall Street, Midtown, and just concerned that they may be, you know, in one of the towers at that point, or in at the Capitol, etc. So it was shocking, and I just had never thought of them coming to our ground, not in war, but at a time of peace, more or less. Yeah.
So it was initial, just a ton of shock. Did
I
you?
was shocked. Yes, I was shocked, saddened, disappointed, perhaps, but I wasn't sure who to be disappointed with. Should we have had better protection? Who knows? How do you protect against something like that?
So at first, did you think it was an accident? A lot of people think that the first plane, this must be an accident, but then they saw the second plane hit and they knew something was wrong. What did you think when that first plane hit?
Yeah, as I remember, my husband and I were just shocked, and my husband, Greg, said he thought this must be terrorism. I don't know that I was thinking that far ahead, because I was immediately thinking of my brother in Midtown and my first cousin at the Pentagon and friends, etc.
So your cousin at the Pentagon, how were they reacting? What was going on with them? And what about your? You said your brother was on Wall Street.
My brother, my brother David is the only Republican in our family. And at the time, he was in Midtown, and I was quite concerned. He had an office in Midtown, and my cousin, who, as it turns out, is a 4-star admiral, retired, was stationed at the Pentagon at that time, but he was not in the part of the Pentagon that was hit. Right? Or yeah.
So I can't even imagine that anxiety that you were feeling.
I also called my mother, who at the time was in New York, in my childhood home on Long Island, and was very concerned about her, because I knew she would be worried. She was very close to both men, my brother, obviously, her third-born child, and my cousin, and so I called her. I was kind of concerned about her.
Did you, because you're from New York, did you know anyone that was in the towers or any of the terrorist attacks?
Yeah, sadly, I did know. I knew of a number who were in the towers, and I'm an alumna of St. Mary's in Manhasset, and there were some folks related who were there, and also just being a New Yorker, I knew some folks. One of my brothers-in-law is or at the time was NYPD Blue, so we knew he was going to be very involved, and it was just awful all around, and I think what it made me think, and I know my husband the same, that we have so many freedoms here in this country, and we're so fortunate to live in a society where we can walk the streets and be unafraid. So it was sad, and I think we should remember.
Right. So you told me that you were at Busch Gardens when 9/11 happened. Tell me, tell me how old you were. Tell me what you were thinking about when you first heard the news.
I was 13, and I was traveling with my aunt and uncle to the Williamsburg Busch Gardens area with my sister, and I heard the news, and they announced it over the speakers at Busch Gardens, and they did a moment of silence, and everyone was kind of in shock. We went back to the hotel room, and we watched the news for pretty much the rest of the day.
So was your Busch Gardens trip cut short? You guys were like, we can't be here, we got to go home, or what? Did you guys continue on your day? What was the vibe there?
There was definitely kind of a damper on things. We stayed and finished out the trip, but it wasn't the same as it would have been, like, lighthearted and happy if 9/11 hadn't happened.
Mm-hmm. So you were, young and impressionable. How were you feeling? Just like, these insane emotions at such a young age.
It was a lot to process, not gonna lie, and I felt, I was terrified. I felt worried about my parents at home, and even though my sister was there with me, we were crying a lot, and definitely a scary time.
Trying to think. So what do you do now? You know, is there something you do on 9/11, or you just kind of, think about it a little bit more?
Well, I have 2 boys now, and so my youngest is 9, my oldest is 10, and so we talk about 9/11 and just especially since my youngest is learning about things in school at Bass, and he's asking questions and wanting to understand like what had happened during 9/11 in 2001.
So you were young. Did you even think that it could have been a terrorist attack? Was that kind of unheard of for you?
It was definitely unheard of for me. I know I was 13 then, but I it was just a whole new thing. Everything's changed since 9/11, I feel like, and even with like airports and security and that kind of thing. But the world still feels like a scary place, even since that's happened. Even though with all the changes, it still can be a scary place.
Do you remember what you were doing that day?
Actually, yes. I was actually in the office, it's about 9:10 or so, and someone walks up very quickly and says, "Have you heard the news that someone is running to the towers?" And everyone's saying, this is crazy, this is terrible, not knowing all the particulars about it. And over the course of the next hour or two, we heard all of the particulars. And so it was a very traumatic day for us, and no one knew what was next and what was going to go on, and perhaps even Lynchburg was a potential target for all these things that were going on. So it was very, very concerning, very scary in some senses.
So walk me through those, that 1 hour in between when the towers were hit. What was your thought process? Did you think maybe it was an accident, or did you think it was a terrorist attack?
It was all about an accident. Everyone said, "Wow, this is so bad that something like this could happen," and just trying to get the particulars and what actually happened. And then suddenly you see another plane come flying into the other tower, and realizing, okay, this is not an accident. This is a something that was planned. And so all the things that went into that after that, and you're hearing so many rumors and so many things, and the news flashes that were coming up. It was a it was a tough day. It was a tough day.
How do you feel, like that someone did this to our country, to our people? Well, what was your thought process then?
It's just hard to understand why people do certain things. You ask that doing something to that magnitude, thousands and thousands of people losing their lives, and then reveling over it. It's inconceivable that humans would actually think and feel that way about others.
So do you do anything like special on 9/11, or you just take a moment of silence or anything like that?
So over the course of years, it's been different. Certainly the next year following that, Lynchburg and the surrounding areas tried to do something really special to try to remember that event. And over the course of years, different times, different things. As you get further and further away from it, I guess the poignancy of it sort of may dissipate a little bit. But it was a serious event, and we have to always be aware going forward that something like that can always happen, even on our land. So we oftentimes see it at other locations and other places around the world, but certainly something can happen here as well. So you have to be diligent in all the things that you do and make sure that we are supportive of our military and our defense, because that's how we stay free.
So do you remember what you were doing on 9/11 when the planes hit the Twin Towers?
Yes, I do. Precisely, my wife and I were getting ready to begin our day. It was very vivid in our minds and catastrophic.
Tell me that catastrophic feeling. Did you think it was at first an accident, or did you think it was a terrorist attack? What was your thought process?
Well, my initial thought was that it was a terrorist attack, but I doubt if we'll find out for sure in this time, but it could have been something completely unexpected,
So also, this was in 2001. We couldn't even really fathom these like massive, mass shootings or these big terrorist attacks. So what was the consensus, you think? Like, a lot of people were really shocked, right?
Yes, I think that the entire world was shocked, and it proved how insensitive we are to other people. It was a very insane act to begin with.
Tell me a little bit about that first moment when you heard about the first plane going into the Twin Towers.
Well, I think like so many of us, we were listening to NPR when it happened, or woke up to that happening. And so that's course, the shock of that was the whole thing was just, everybody's in awe. And we were running I was in the bakery business at the time with Montana Plains, and I remember like everybody stopped getting like healthy things, and they all got rich desserts after that, and they went to that. It was dead, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted comfort food with that. Yeah.
Okay, so where were you living? You said Montana?
No. I was living on Riverbond Avenue.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you were here.
Here, yes.
Okay, so
I also went 2 weeks after the disaster or the terror attack. I went to Ground Zero and did a photo project around Ground Zero. And I actually had an exhibition that was just down the street here that I brought back. I did a photographic project. I brought found objects and I made an exhibition. And one of the premises of the show was that depending on how close you were to the event, whether by proximity or with relationships, is how much you were changed. And of course, at that event, the world changed, but people experienced it or came to that conclusion all at different times. And so my project was to make people help them bring them to the present world state.
So you said that you were there 2 weeks after it happened. What was the energy like?
Oh, it was extremely sad. Missing person pictures everywhere, and ash still around after 2 weeks. And it was like a pilgrimage that people came to see it, and it felt like a pilgrimage that people went to help them understand what was going on.
You think in a time of such terror, do you think America kind of came together as one big community, like relying on each other in a way?
Well, I mean, extremely much, yes. That loss of innocence that American experience really brought us together.
Is there something that you do in remembrance of 9/11, every year? Maybe just think about it a little bit more.
I post a photograph on Facebook from that trip. Yeah.
Okay, and also really quickly,
Not very much.
at first, no, it's okay. At first, did you think it was a terrorist attack, or were you under the impression it might have been an accident?
I don't think I had any idea at the time, because, I think accident would be the first thought with the first tower being hit, and it was the second one that I think we all said, oh, that's what it is. It couldn't be the two of them. So, it was a different world then, before that. So.
Yeah, so it was a different world. Back then we didn't even really have these big terror attacks. Was it something unheard of, like completely out of your mind?
Certainly on that scale and that whole thing that happened. I remember I was doing interviews around Ground Zero at the time, and there was two military guys about to be stationed to go out to Afghanistan, and they described it as the America's two front teeth were knocked out. And I think that was pretty powerful, but they were ready, and they were going to fight. It was already happening.
What were you guys doing in that moment? When you think of 9/11, do you remember where you were?
I was actually on the way from the doctor. I had stopped and gotten a biscuit at Hardee's and was sitting at the kitchen table when the first plane hit the towers.
What was your first reaction?
Oh my God. Just couldn't believe it. It was almost unbelievable.
And what about you? Where were you?
I was getting ready for work. I was in Arizona, and as a former Marine, I was looking. I thought it was an accident. I thought they accidentally ran into the tower until I saw this, and I was watching it when the second tower hit. Was hit.
So when you saw that second tower hit,
I was like, "This is a terrorist attack." I knew it was a terrorist attack at that point.
what did you think it was?
Same. And I was frightened. I was just the people. I was just so hurt that those people had to go through what they were going through, trying to jump out the windows, and it was just devastating.
Do you guys do anything in remembrance of 9/11, or just kind of just think back on that day?
I just think back on it, and I do go back and look at some of the footage from the. I listen to some of the interviews. I just kind of want to remember and pay honor to the people that were fallen.
I just call my kids and make sure they're okay. They're in Arizona still, so I just make sure they're okay today.
So tell me a little bit about 9/11/2001. Do you remember where you were?
I do. I was down at Hilton Head. We had a place down there, and woke up that morning and saw it, realized what was going on, and had to watch it all morning. It was horrible. But go ahead.
What was your initial reaction? Did you think it was an accident or a terrorist attack?
Well, I thought it was just an accident at first until the second one hit, and then it became pretty obvious that it was a terror attack. So, yeah.
What did you feel in that moment?
Well, just stunned. Sorry for the people that were having to go through it. And it was, I'm sure everybody felt the same way. I mean, it was horrible.
I mean, in that moment, 2001, we didn't really have experiences like that yet. So did it feel like this might be the beginning of a lot of terror? What were you thinking?
Yeah, that was a possibility. And I think that's when the president shut down the airspace completely over the U.S. and until they found out what was going on, and then went from there. But yeah.
Do you do anything special on 9/11, or you just maybe think about it a little bit more?
I do think about it, but don't do anything special other than remember it, have memories of it, and feel sorry for those that had to go through it, and those that are having to live today who have lost loved ones and that type of thing.